Hello everyone, welcome back in my class of CIS3146 Embedded Systems. We are in week number 2 and in this week our focus is to explore C programming language, and this is part 1 of C programming language. In week number 1 we explored number systems. I am Dr. Hariman Pandey from the Department of Computer Science, and my email ID is given here, which you can use to discuss your doubts, or if you want to get any information in this module, then you can write me email using this email ID. We will start this session by taking a quick look on the aim and objectives for this week session. As far as the aim of this session is concerned, so here aim is given, exploring C programming language, and in order to achieve this aim, I have framed several objectives. So we will start with basics of programming language. In this objective, we will discuss, first topic which we will discuss is what is language, and then we'll move to computer programming language. Why we need computer programming language. Then the second objective which I have given here is C programming basics. Then we'll discuss the role of variables, constant and operators in programming language, and different types of operators given in C programming language. The next topic, the next objective is decision making statements. We'll discuss various types of decision making statements given in C programming language, and looping statements that are given in C programming language. So all in all, we will discuss 3 different types of looping statement. And the last objective which I have given here is introduction to arrays. So we will discuss these 5 objectives in different parts of video lectures to achieve this aim. So I will start with the first objective, which is basics of programming language. So the first thing we need to understand is what is language and why we need language. So here you can see a language is a system to communicate. So suppose there are 2 persons, and this is person 1 and person 2, and they want to communicate with each other. Then in order to communicate, they have to have one language, and I'm calling that language is L. So same, a language is required to communicate with the systems. Language is used to communicate in real world. So like we use English, some people use Hindi, French, Spanish, Chinese. So there are several languages one can use to communicate in real world. And the language which we'll use to communicate in real world is referred as natural language. For example, like we use English to communicate with each other. Some people use Spanish, some people use French, Hindi, or any other language. So these languages are nothing but called as natural languages. Like this system which we use in a real world to communicate, if you want to communicate with a computer system, then if a person wants to communicate with the computer system, then there is a need of a language, and that language is known as computer programming language. So here you can see, similarly, there should be a language to communicate with the computer, and we write a program using computer programming language. So this language is known as, this language L is known as computer programming language. And why computer programming language? Because in order to perform any task in computer, you are using a language, let's say L, and using this language L will write a program to perform this task. So that is the reason we call it program. A computer language has a limited and restricted vocabulary, where natural language are rich in vocabulary. So in computer programming language, we have restricted vocabulary and we call it keywords. So special words are given in computer programming languages and we call those words as a keywords. Now next we will discuss computer programming language in detail. So every language like English have certain rules and valid sentences, and if the sentence is valid, we call it the sentence is correct in terms of grammar. Similarly, a computer programming language follows certain rules, and here you can see every language has certain symbols. Similarly, computer programming languages uses some symbols. We'll discuss all these things one by one. Now, the rules using symbols given in a language is known as syntax rule. So, if you are using a programming language, then you need to follow the rules of that language, and that rule is referred as syntax of the programming language. So if you want to write something in programming language, then you need to follow a specific syntax given in that particular programming language. Now syntax rule, what is syntax rule? Syntax rules are called as grammar of that language, as I said. And the meaning, like if you are writing something, some statement, S is written using appropriate syntax rules, so it means that the statement S is correct. It is correct in terms of grammar, and this sentence S has some meaning, and this meaning is referred as semantic of the language, of the grammar. So the meaning of the sentence is referred as semantics, and the correctness of this sentence S is referred as syntax or grammar of that language. Now, whenever we write a computer program, it must follow a syntax of the particular programming language. Suppose you are writing some statements, some instructions in a C programming language to print something, then you are using print F, and then your statement which you want to print will go in double quote, and then it will be terminated with semicolon. So the syntax for this is printf and your statement and this. So this is according to the syntax given in the programming language. So in different programming language we use different types of syntax, and different programming, it means that different programming language follows different set of rules or grammars. Next we will discuss classification of programming languages. So programming languages are basically classified in three different categories. All computer programming language are classified into three different categories. First category is known as machine language, second category is referred as assembly language, and third category is referred as high level language, and we will discuss these three categories one by one. So the next slide is dedicated for the first language type, which is machine language. So what is machine language? Machine language means the language of the computer. Why it is called as language of the computer? Because here, if you want to perform some task, then your task will be in the form of signals, which will consist of sequence of zeros and ones. So suppose you want to perform some task, then your task will be coded in 0 and 1. So that is why we call it, and computer understands binary number, that is 0 and 1. That is why we call it the language of the computer. Here in machine language, computer uses input, and input will be supplied in the form of a string of 0 and 1. So suppose you want to press, let's say, enter. So enter button you are pressing using your keyboard, or you are pressing A. You want to print A on your screen, and then you are pressing this keyword, this key A. So what will happen? This A will be converted in the form of sequence of 0 and 1s, and this sequence of 0 and 1 will be transferred to the computer as an input. So that is why it is called as language of the computer. For example, you can see A, and it is represented using this binary sequence of zeros and ones. Since it is in 0 and 1, so it is difficult to understand by programmers. So the solution is assembly language. So in assembly language, what will happen? We use this binary sequence of zeros and ones are converted in human readable notations, and this readable notation is known as symbols, or we call it mnemonics. I have given one example here. So you can see this is binary sequence of binary number, that is in 0 and 1. It is in machine language. The same thing, the same sequence is represented using assembly language with this statement, that is move AL061H. So what is happening here? This is a hexadecimal number. We discussed number system last week, hexadecimal number system number, and we are assigning this hexadecimal number into this register. AL is my register, and it will store this hexadecimal number. So that is the reason move, we are telling to the system, move this number to this register, that is move AL061H, this number move to this. So that is why we use assembly language to simplify machine language, so that we can read it. But reading the assembly language is still difficult. So in order to make this whole idea simpler, we use another language type, which is high level language. So in high level language, we use simple English. So we have seen that assembly language and machine language requires deep knowledge of computer hardware, whereas high level language uses simple English in words to write the instructions and logic. We use different symbols, we use mathematical notations. High level languages enables programmer to focus more on the logic rather than dealing with number systems. That's it. So all in all, we discussed the three different types of language. Machine language, instructions are represented in 0 and 1s. Assembly language, instructions are represented in symbols or mnemonics. And the last type of language we discussed was high level language, where we use where a programmer uses simple instructions, mathematical symbols, etc. In the next session, we will discuss C programming basics. That's all.